You're not lazy, but if you keep believing that, it might quietly ruin your life. Because the moment you call yourself lazy, you stop trying to understand yourself. And when that happens, you don't fix the problem, you become it. Think about it. If you were truly lazy, you wouldn't care. You wouldn't feel that tension in your chest when you delay something important. You wouldn't feel guilt randomly hitting you at night. You wouldn't think about your potential and wonder why you're not living up to it. Lazy people don't overthink, but you do. And that changes everything. Somewhere along the way, you learned this about yourself. I'm just not disciplined. I can't stay consistent. I always procrastinate. At first, it was just a thought. Then it became a pattern, and slowly, it became your identity. Not because it was true, but because it was repeated. By you, and maybe by others too. But here's the part no one tells you. What you call laziness is often something else entirely. It's not a lack of effort. It's a conflict, a quiet internal resistance between two parts of you. One part wants to move forward, the other wants to stay safe. And safety is powerful, more powerful than motivation, more powerful than discipline. Because your brain is not designed to make you successful. It's designed to protect you. So when you sit down to do something important, something that actually matters, your mind doesn't just see the task. It sees the risk, failure, judgment, embarrassment, pressure, even success. Because success means higher expectations, more eyes on you, more to lose. And in that moment, your brain makes a quiet decision. Let's not do this right now. Not because you're lazy, but because it feels safer to wait. Think about the last time you avoided something important. You didn't just ignore it, you felt something, a heaviness, a hesitation, a subtle discomfort you couldn't explain. And instead of facing that feeling, you escaped it. You opened your phone, you delayed it, you told yourself, I'll do it later. That's the real pattern. You're not avoiding the task, you're avoiding the emotion attached to the task. And the more you avoid it, the stronger that pattern becomes. You avoid the task, then guilt shows up. The guilt drains your energy, so the next time feels even harder. And slowly, you start trusting yourself less. That's where it begins to hurt. Not just because things aren't getting done, but because your relationship with yourself starts breaking down. Now here's where this pattern usually begins. Not today, not last year, but much earlier. For some people, it started in childhood. Maybe you were praised for being smart, not for working hard. So when things became difficult, you hesitated. Because struggling didn't feel like growth. It felt like losing your identity. Or maybe your effort was ignored, but your mistakes weren't. So trying started to feel risky. Because trying meant being seen, and being seen meant being judged, or maybe, no matter what you did, it never felt like enough. So your mind adapted. It found a way to protect you, by lowering effort, by delaying action, by staying in a space where expectations couldn't hurt you. Because if you don't fully try, you don't fully fail. And if you don't fail, you don't have to question your worth. This is the contradiction you live in. You want to grow. You want to do more. Be more. Prove something. Maybe to others, maybe to yourself. But at the same time, there's a part of you holding back, not to sabotage you, but to protect you. And the problem is, you've been fighting that part, calling it lazy, calling it weak, trying to force your way through it. But force doesn't work here, because you're not dealing with a lack of discipline. You're dealing with a protective system that believes it's helping you. And the harder you fight it, the stronger it pushes back. There's something else happening too, something quieter. Mental exhaustion. When your mind is constantly running, overthinking, analyzing, replaying, it burns energy. So when it's finally time to act, you feel empty, not physically tired, but mentally drained. And doing nothing starts to feel like the only relief. Not because you're lazy, but because you're already overwhelmed. So what's the real shift? It's not pushing harder. It's understanding deeper. Instead of asking, why am I so lazy? Ask something different. What am I protecting myself from? That question changes everything because it replaces judgment with awareness. And awareness is where change actually begins. You start noticing things. The tasks you avoid the most are usually the ones that matter the most, the ones tied to your identity, the ones where failure would feel personal. And suddenly, your behavior makes sense. You're not avoiding because it's hard. You're avoiding because it's meaningful. That's the reframe. What looks like laziness is often sensitivity. What looks like avoidance is often protection. What looks like weakness is often a mind that learned to survive. And survival is not something to be ashamed of. But here's the truth. What once protected you might now be limiting you. So the goal isn't to force yourself into action. It's to make action feel safe again. And that starts small, not with huge changes, not with extreme discipline, but with tiny moments where you move forward without attacking yourself. One step without pressure, one action, without fear of judgment. And slowly, your mind begins to learn something new. That wasn't dangerous. I can handle this. I'm safe to try. And over time, that changes everything. You don't need to become a different person. You don't need to suddenly become disciplined. You just need to understand the system you've been living in. Because maybe you were never lazy. Maybe you were just protecting yourself in the only way you knew how. And maybe the problem was never your discipline, but the way you learned to see yourself. So instead of asking, why can't I do anything? Start asking, what do I need to feel safe enough to begin? Because you don't need more pressure. You don't need more shame. You don't need to become better. You just need to understand what was already there. And when you do, something shifts. Quietly, gently, but permanently. You stop fighting yourself. And for the first time, you start moving forward without feeling like you're at war with your own mind. And that's the moment everything begins to change.